In a quiet village nestled in the lush green hills of ancient India, there lived a man named Siddhartha, who had been plagued by a relentless search for the impermanence of life. He was born into a life of privilege, the son of a wealthy king, and had known nothing but comfort and opulence. Yet from a young age, Siddhartha had been haunted by the fleeting nature of happiness, the inevitability of suffering, and the impermanence of all things. Siddhartha's existential quest began when he was still a young prince, sheltered within the palace walls. One day, as he ventured outside with his charioteer Channa, he encountered the harsh realities of the world beyond the palace gates. He saw an old man, frail and wrinkled, bent low with age, hobbling along with a walking stick. Siddhartha was struck by the stark contrast between the youth and vitality within the palace and the suffering and decay outside its walls. "What ails that man, Channa?" Siddhartha inquired, his eyes fixed on the old man. Channa, who had witnessed suffering before but kept it hidden from Siddhartha, replied, "That, my lord, is the way of the world. Age eventually takes its toll on everyone." The sight of the old man left a deep impression on Siddhartha's young mind. He returned to the palace, lost in thought, pondering the impermanence of life. This encounter marked the beginning of his spiritual journey. Over the years, Siddhartha encountered other aspects of suffering and impermanence. He witnessed a man afflicted by a severe illness, his body racked with pain, and another man mourning the loss of a loved one. These encounters only intensified his curiosity about the nature of existence. Despite his life of luxury, Siddhartha's mind became increasingly restless. He sought solace in the palace gardens, where he often engaged in deep contemplation, questioning the purpose of life and the causes of suffering. He even sought counsel from the palace scholars and sages, but their answers failed to satisfy his insatiable thirst for understanding. One fateful night, unable to find peace within the opulent palace, Siddhartha decided to leave everything behind and embark on a journey in search of truth. He made the difficult choice to renounce his princely life, leaving his family, wealth, and the life of comfort behind. Siddhartha, now known as the ascetic Gautama, set out on his quest for answers, determined to uncover the impermanence of life and the path to enlightenment. For 6 years, Gautama wandered through the forests, deserts, and villages of India, living the life of a penniless ascetic. He studied under renowned spiritual teachers and mastered the art of meditation, but his quest remained unfulfilled. The answers continued to elude him, and the impermanence of life still cast its shadow. One day, near the banks of the river Ganges, Gautama met a group of ascetics who were practicing extreme self-mortification. They believed that by subjecting their bodies to severe suffering, they could attain spiritual enlightenment. Gautama joined them, enduring extreme hunger, self-inflicted pain, and deprivation. But after several months, he realized that such extreme practices only led to physical and mental exhaustion. They did not provide the profound insights he sought. He decided to abandon this path and sought a middle way, one that neither indulged in luxury nor extreme asceticism. Gautama sat beneath the Bodhi tree, determined to meditate until he found the answers he sought. For 49 days, he remained in deep contemplation, battling his inner demons and confronting the impermanence of all things. As he meditated, he recalled the images of the old man, the sick man, the grieving man, and all the suffering he had witnessed throughout his life. On the morning of the 49th day, the sun began to rise, casting a warm and golden glow upon the world. Gautama, with a serene and unwavering mind, finally achieved enlightenment. He saw the interconnection of all life, the truth of impermanence, and the path to liberation from suffering. He had become the Buddha, the awakened one. Buddha's newfound wisdom filled him with compassion for all beings. He realized that suffering was universal, and that the impermanence of life was an inescapable truth. He dedicated his life to sharing his insights and guiding others on the path to Nirvana, the ultimate liberation from suffering. The Buddha traveled throughout India, teaching his message of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. He gathered a community of followers, both monks and lay people, who embraced his teachings and sought to find their own path to enlightenment. One day, as the Buddha and his disciples were resting in a tranquil forest, Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana, received news of his son's enlightenment and journey as the Buddha. Filled with a mixture of pride, regret, and a desire to reconnect with his son, the king made his way to the forest to meet the Buddha. When the king arrived, he was struck by the sight of his son, who had once been a prince of great wealth, now sitting humbly among his disciples, radiating a serene and compassionate presence. The king approached the Buddha with reverence, but also with tears in his eyes. "My son, I am overjoyed to see you have found enlightenment, but I regret the years we spent apart. I wish I could have been there to witness your journey and share in your wisdom," King Suddhodana said. The Buddha, with deep love and understanding, replied, "Father, the path to enlightenment is a personal one, and each must find it in their own way. I had to leave behind the comforts of the palace to discover the truths of existence. But my purpose now is to share these truths with all beings, so that they may find the path to liberation from suffering." The king listened intently to the Buddha's words, and he too began to see the impermanence of life and the importance of seeking inner wisdom. Inspired by his son's teachings, King Suddhodana renounced his throne and joined the Sangha, the community of Buddhist monks, to pursue a life of spiritual growth and enlightenment. As the years passed, the Buddha continued his mission, spreading his teachings far and wide. His compassion and wisdom drew people from all walks of life, and his message of impermanence and the path to nirvana resonated deeply with those who sought answers to life's most profound questions. One day, as the Buddha and his disciples were traveling through a remote village, they encountered a man who was grieving the recent loss of his wife. The man's pain was palpable, and his cries of sorrow filled the air. The Buddha approached the grieving man and asked, "Why do you weep, my friend?" The man looked up, tears streaming down his face, and replied, "Buddha, my wife was my everything. Her love and presence brought joy and meaning to my life. Now, she is gone, and I am left with this unbearable emptiness." The Buddha nodded with compassion and said, "I understand your pain, for I too have witnessed the impermanence of all things. Life is like a river, constantly flowing and changing. Birth and death are the natural cycles of existence, and all that is born must one day pass away." The grieving man listened intently, his heart heavy with grief. The Buddha continued, "But in recognizing the impermanence of life, we also discover the preciousness of the present moment. By clinging to the past or fearing the future, we create suffering for ourselves. The path to liberation from suffering is found in understanding the nature of impermanence and learning to let go." The man's eyes filled with curiosity as he asked, "But how can I find peace and happiness when the person I loved is no longer with me?" The Buddha smiled gently and said, "You can find peace by cultivating a mind of equanimity and a heart filled with compassion. Embrace the impermanence of life as a reminder to cherish each moment. By practicing mindfulness and living in the present, you can find joy and contentment even in the face of loss." As the Buddha spoke, the grieving man felt a glimmer of hope. He began to realize that his suffering was not in the loss of his wife, but in his attachment to her. The impermanence of life, a truth he had always known but had chosen to ignore, became a source of insight and wisdom. Over time, with the guidance of the Buddha and the support of the local Buddhist community, the man learned to let go of his attachment and find peace within himself. He discovered the path to nirvana, the ultimate liberation from suffering. by embracing the impermanence of life and the wisdom of the Buddha's teachings. The journey of the man who had lost his wife was just one of countless stories that unfolded during the Buddha's lifetime. His teachings touched the hearts of people from all walks of life, and they continue to inspire and guide countless individuals to this day. As the years passed, the Buddha's own impermanence became evident to his followers. He grew older and weaker, and his physical form began to show signs of age. The time had come for the Buddha to bid farewell to his disciples and pass into parinirvana, the final cessation of suffering. Gathering his disciples beneath the shade of a giant banyan tree, the Buddha began to deliver his final sermon. His voice was gentle, yet filled with profound wisdom. "My dear disciples," the Buddha began, "I have taught you the path to enlightenment, the Four Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Path. I have shown you the impermanence of life and the importance of letting go of attachments. Now, it is time for me to depart from this world and enter parinirvana." Tears welled up in the eyes of the disciples, for they knew that the loss of their beloved teacher was inevitable. The Buddha continued, "Remember that my physical form is impermanent, as is the physical form of all living beings. It is the nature of all things to change and pass away. But my teachings, the Dharma, will remain as a timeless guide to help you navigate the challenges of life." The disciples listened with reverence, knowing that the wisdom of the Buddha's teachings would continue to illuminate their path. The Buddha then turned his attention to Ananda, his devoted disciple who had been with him for many years. "Ananda, you have been by my side, serving me faithfully and listening to my teachings. Now, it is your responsibility to carry forward the Dharma and preserve it for future generations." Ananda, with tears in his eyes, bowed to the Buddha and said, "I will do my best to fulfill this sacred duty, my Lord." The Buddha smiled, his face radiant with peace, and he concluded his final sermon with these words, "May all beings find liberation from suffering. May they understand the impermanence of life, and may they follow the path to nirvana. My time in this world is drawing to a close, but the Dharma will endure. Seek your own enlightenment, my dear disciples, and continue to spread the teachings of compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness." With these words, the Buddha closed his eyes and entered a deep state of meditation. As the sun set in the sky, his breathing slowed and his physical form gradually faded away. The disciples, still and reverent, bore witness to the Buddha's peaceful passing into parinirvana. Though the Buddha's physical presence had come to an end, his teachings lived on, carried by his disciples and passed down through generations. The impermanence of life, a truth he had discovered in his youth, remained a central theme in his teachings, guiding countless individuals toward enlightenment and liberation from suffering. The story of Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, and his search for the impermanence of life, serves as a timeless reminder of the profound wisdom that can be found in embracing the transitory nature of existence. It is a reminder to live with mindfulness, compassion, and the understanding that all things, including life itself, are subject to change and impermanence.